All right.
I'll edit it later. All right. So, what do you feel is the purpose of the move for the Braves going to Cobb County?
My understanding is that it's to move closer to their fan base, right? So I'm not a huge Braves fan. I mean, I'm from Mississippi, which is Braves country technically. There are, even in Mississippi, there are some people that I know that are excited about the Braves moving out of that area because apparently that's not the best area.
Exactly.
Sort of a crime-riddled area. So I think that's the idea, to move out of that bad location into a better location and be closer to your fan base.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you feel this move will affect the economy of Cobb County right now?
Of Cobb County?
Cobb County, yeah.
I think the net impact, so I'll just address both these questions.
Okay, exactly.
Fulton and Cobb. It's not going to be much, man, because I don't think, as you know, I don't think that sports teams have much influence on their local economies anyway. The comparison is that you can expect the Braves to have about as much impact on Cobb County as the Macy's department store in the mall.
Yeah.
It's going to generate about as much income for the local economy as a Macy's department store. So it's like saying, oh, well, this Macy's moved out, I mean, that's basically the same thing. So is it going to hurt? Maybe at the margin we will see just a little decline in economic activity. But it's not going to be a big deal, man. It's certainly not a doomsday scenario for Fulton County, and it's not a savior for Cobb County.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to have much impact. It doesn't. I'm getting into some of the other questions you have here, but it's not going to generate many new jobs in Cobb County. The jobs that it does generate will be a lot of temporary part-time jobs. Think about like the athletes, the primary people that use the stadium. A lot of them may not even, I don't know about the Braves roster, but a lot of times it's the case, in fact, most times I think it's the case that they don't even live in Cobb County. They may not even live in the state of Georgia. They may have some, I mean, who's somebody, that's famous on their roster that's not from this area? That he may live in Wisconsin during the off season. So he takes all that money that he makes in Cobb County and pulls it out of the local economy and takes it up to somewhere in Wisconsin. So that's a leakage out of the local economy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then here's the big thing, man. This is what I was when somebody was from the AJC was asking me the same question. This is what I told him. The economic impact. Remember when we talk about the accounting profits and economic profits. The economic profits take into account opportunity costs too. The economic profit is probably negative because if Cobb County didn't use this money to build a new stadium for the Braves, they could have built a cardboard box plant, which would have 3.5 times the impact on the local economy and generate 3.5 times the job and 3.5 times the income for that local economy, man. So. The answer is anywhere from not much to bad.
To bad, exactly.
But it's certainly not going to be great. And I think that's the misconception that a lot of people have.
Yeah, because like you said, they're not taking into account the opportunity cost of how much they're actually putting into it. So on the flip side of that, you basically feel like it won't change Fulton County.
I don't think it would matter. In fact, it could free up some resources for them. It could be a good thing to see the Braves. Now, they already got a stadium. So, what are you going to do with that area now? But, I certainly don't think it's a bad thing, especially not when they're just moving right down the road. It's not like, you're still going to attract fans to the stadium. How far is it? I'm not a geographic expert of this area, but how far is it from where the stadium is to entering Fulton County?
nothing more than, it's right there.
10, 15 minutes?
miles. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, so 10, 15 minutes, people come from, a Mississippi, a Braves fan from Mississippi comes up and he wants to go to a Braves game and he's got his family with him. He may stay somewhere in between Six Flags, and so he may still stay in Fulton County anyway.
So it wouldn't even be Cobb County.
You know, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you do things, Fulton County still got things that are going to attract people. Now, these guys that live around here, Fulton County's going to lose some money there, but not much.
But yeah, the percentage of everything is.
But the outside person. See, that's the thing, man. That money was already. These guys were already going to spend their money in Cobb County anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So they could go to Stylesboro Biscuits and buy a biscuit this morning, or they could go to a Braves game.
Exactly.
Or they could go bowling, or they could go to the mall. But all that money, so that's just a reallocation from one source to another.
Exactly.
This is a little bit different because it's not like Cobb County's building a new stadium for the Braves. They're actually getting a team. So it's not like they have a team now and they're going to build them a new stadium. So that makes this deal a little bit different than most deals. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think we just answered a bunch of those. Let's see. So basically, we went over new fans. Pretty much, it's going to be the same people and maybe some others, but just transferred. Instead of going bowling, now they're going to the Braves games.
So. And that's what I meant to close with. That I mean that guy that comes from Mississippi, man. I mean he's going to. I bet he's most likely going to stay in Fulton County anyway. So it's not like the Braves aren't still going to attract money to Fulton County.
Yeah, it's still going to happen. Yeah. So we covered the jobs. So obviously, in the initial period, there's going to be more tourists just say, oh yeah, I'm going to the new stadium. But in the long run, from what I've read, it's not really going to, 3 years from now, no one's going to say, oh, I got to go to the new Braves stadium because just to see it.
Exactly. That's the point, man. In the first couple of years of the life of this stadium, for the Braves, this is a good thing. Now for the Cobb County, for Fulton County, probably not much of an impact at all. But for the Braves, yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, it must be moving closer to your fan base. Is this the right move? I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't see a downside to it for them. And my understanding is that they're not only just going to buy that, they own all of that land that the stadium's located on. So any restaurant or bar or anybody that builds in that area is going to pay rent to the Braves. So they're making money off of them guys too. And you're getting a new stadium, a state-of-the-art stadium. You're getting into a better neighborhood that's not as much crime. Maybe a neighborhood that's a little bit wealthier even. I don't know if that's true, but it might be true. But apparently, like I say, close to the fan base. So it's definitely a good move for them.
For the Braves. And then you say for Cobb County, necessarily, it might not be the best economically sound choice.
It's definitely not. Definitely
because
not.
They're kind of sending $300 million to just.
Well, I mean, if I gave you an investment option right now and said, okay, Taylor, this is for your retirement portfolio, and you can choose, this option A or option B, and this isn't going to be on the interview. You can't record this.
Yeah.
But this is option A and option B, and I said, hey, this one's going to generate, $5 million a year for your retirement portfolio, and this one's going to generate $1 million a year. Which would be better? This one, man. I mean, it's an obvious choice, right? So why is it not so obvious for Cobb County officials to say, hey, should I spend this money to attract, an automobile factory or an envelope factory? That's one of the, that's this crazy thing, man, that envelope factories generate more money for their local economy than sports teams do.
Yeah,
So
supposedly they're basically, you got the 300 million that just there's a little bit what they've mentioned of like a safe thing where they're going to, I guess, pay a certain amount back, and they have some like if there's a strike, they're going to pay or something like that. Like even Bradbury had mentioned in one of his articles that I read, like an interview, it said that that's what makes this different is that they've looked forward to kind of figure out any issues that may have happened like economically, but I still don't see how 300 million is going to be repaid back in any way from.
Oh,
yeah, like do you even see the 300 million being paid back?
The subsidy?
Yeah, the subsidy, like in any way.
It's a subsidy, man.
Exactly.
I mean,
because some people are talking about how they're going to generate enough to make it back, and like they're going to get.
That's what I'm saying about economic profits versus accounting profits. Okay, so let's say that they do. Let's say we give them a $300 million subsidy. They generate enough economic activity to warrant that subsidy. That still doesn't mean that money wouldn't be better spent on something else, man. Yeah. On education, that might generate an even greater return. Yeah. So I'm not saying, now you like option A and option B, man. Option B does have a positive return, and that's what they say. Oh, man, it's going to generate $1 million. This is a good idea for you guys. But you're not telling us that there's another option out there that we could spend that money on that's going to generate $5 million. Which, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because something just because I could have a job making $40,000, I'd rather have a job making $80,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's see. I was going to say, but it's definitely a good move for the Braves. Did you ask me? The stadium. Definitely in the first 2 or 3 years, I think that it will have that impact. But in the end, man, it just depends on whether or not you win.
Exactly.
If you win, they will come.
Yeah.
You can, for the first 2 or 3 years, you might be able to have a situation where people come to see the stadium.
Yeah. Maybe a small increase in attendance or something, but after that, it's just if they're losing, it doesn't matter. Because it's not like Turner Field ever had a big issue, and I mean they've sold out multiple games with when they're winning. This everybody shows up. So let's see. So we covered how will the move affect Atlanta businesses. Pretty much, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference there, and like you said, there's still going to be people that are going to stay in Atlanta to go to the games who are outside of the city and everything. Let's see. Jobs created are all kind of short-termed, and I actually read. I'm going to edit this a lot. I actually read that most of the jobs aren't even going to be local jobs either. It's just going to be people who work for a company who are coming to build it, and then they're gone back.
Oh yeah. So, sure. See.
So like that was one of the
construction jobs. Yeah.
That was one of the positives of like the people who were made this deal were trying to tell the Cobb County people like, hey, look.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
Let's see. So we got that. So 300 million. Basically, there was a lot talking about like taxes and stuff, but I read some that said that they were trying not to increase tax for Cobb County owners. Do you think that there will be tax increase?
There will be.
But I don't know exact details on it.
Well, you in my econ and sport finance class. So I think we went through that example of, was the millage rate going to increase by like, I knew at the time last year, I think it's like 5 meals or something.
Yeah. You did the whole problem.
But I remember doing, so for my house, it meant a $10, like a $10 increase in my property tax. Okay. So that's the idea, man. I mean, everybody in Cobb County, maybe you increase. I mean, every house you ride by, see if you think a $10 increase in that's a lot of money. You just made a lot of money, man. If you could go by to every house in Cobb County collect $10.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the average increase is going to be about $10.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's would you pay $10 to keep the Braves? Are you a Braves fan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a huge.
Are you excited about them moving closer to you in Cobb County?
Yeah, and I'd rather pay $10.
Are you willing to pay? that's the idea, man. Knowing that this $10 would be better spent elsewhere in the Cobb County economy.
And then,
But if you're still willing to say, I'm okay paying $10 extra a month in property taxes to have the Braves be closer and have this new stadium, then do it, man.
Yeah.
From your perspective, it's a good deal.
Yeah. You look at it short-term wise, and like you said, you don't really think of what else you could spend the money on.
But you just have to go in. That's my biggest problem. Is I don't like it when these local officials and the owners and these economic consultants, so-called economic consultants, say, look at all this money and look how good it's going to be for them. Look at the construction jobs and all this stuff. Don't lie to us.
Yeah.
We're not stupid.
Showing half of the story.
Just tell us the truth that, hey, your money would be better spent elsewhere, but this is the Braves, and baseball is a lot cooler than envelopes.
Yeah.
How often are you going to go to the envelope industry and watch them make envelopes? How often are you going to come to the stadium and watch us play baseball? A lot more. So that this money would be better spent elsewhere, but let's do it because it's the Braves.
Yep.
I'd be on board with that, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I'm okay taking a $10 hit.
Yeah.
To
as long as
to have a baseball team close by.
As long as they're straightforward about it. Yeah, because there's a lot saying basically that they're showing all these positives, but all the positives don't even take into account, like you said, the opportunity cost of what could we do elsewhere with it. So they just have, here's what it's going to bring in, here's the jobs that it's bringing in, here's the money that we're getting back each year off of this. But then you don't even say, oh, by the way, we're spending $300 million up front. They're increasing this. We're gonna pretty much lose all that into anything. So if they were just kind of more straightforward, I guess we would. So pretty much covered this. New fans will only come in the first couple of years. After that, it's pretty much just going to be maybe your occasional, but
I think so.
I agree with that. I have had two amazing
traffic flow is a big thing. Do you think that, let's start with a more simple question. Do you think the traffic around the Turner Field area will be improved after this?
I mean, never having been down there, my expectation would be yes.
Yeah. That's right.
I mean, you got a main reason for a lot of traffic not being there anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how it could get worse. That wouldn't make sense,
Yeah.
Will it get worse in this area around the state? My expectation would be yes.
Yeah.
They can do some things to alter the traffic flow. I'm no engineering. That's a question for a civil engineer.
Yeah, exactly.
Which isn't me.
Yeah.
But I mean, my expectation would be you're gonna have to. That's one of the negative side effects, man. There's a lot of positive externalities about having a baseball team, but that's certainly one of the negative ones.
Yeah.
Worse traffic.
Yeah. They have, supposedly there's plans to rebuild. They're trying to make a couple connectors that, through kind of some of the smaller cities that are going to be impacted by it. Because think of, a Friday night game that's at, 6 or 7 o'clock. And then the city, in Cobb County specifically, Terramole Road, Windy Hill Road, it's already packed every single day. Monday through Friday from 4:30 to 7, it's just packed. Yeah. And then you add a baseball game in on these small roads. They're one-lane roads. So supposedly they're going to, widen them and create some other highways and stuff. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. I don't know if you know. Do you know if they're planning on using Turner Field as anything else after the...
I have no idea, but my expectation would be that you would.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Because it's not an old stadium or anything. So.
Maybe you don't have the Braves. Maybe I haven't even thought about this, and I'm sure they wouldn't do this, but the Packers used to play some games in Green Bay and some games in Milwaukee. They don't do that anymore. They quit doing it.
Yeah.
But you could almost see with them saying, well, we're going to play 20 games a year in the old stadium.
That's a good idea.
Or 10 games.
I didn't think about that.
I doubt that happens.
Yeah.
But you could do something like that. But I mean, concerts. They would have to generate enough revenue to warrant upkeep in the stadium, which is going to cost money. But if you could do that with, I mean, Atlanta's such a large area, man. The problem for them is going to be that the Georgia Dome's about to be in the same boat, so they're going to have to compete with the Georgia Dome for that type of stuff. So it's going to be the old Braves Stadium and the old Falcon Stadium going head to head to try to stay alive, and that's going to be hard, man. I would expect that the Georgia Dome would win that battle because it's a dome and it's in a better location.
It's used for a lot more.
And you can fit more people in it. So it's going to be hard for them to, if they can find some. I mean, it's already there. So what are you going to do? Are you going to tear it down and build something else there? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? So speaking of the Georgia Dome and everything, do you think that the whole deal with that, the Falcons making their deal with the new stadium, had any impact on the Braves kind of jumping in and doing their whole new stadium? Like, basically, do you think that gave them, kind of sparked an idea or anything, or no relation?
I don't know.
It might just be a coincidence that they happen, the same year.
I was just thinking about Cincinnati. The same thing happened there, that the Bengals and the Reds got new stadiums almost. It might have been the same year, man. There could be something to that. I mean, I never thought about that before, but it could be that. I mean, certainly the Braves owners would hear about rumblings of the Falcons owners wanting to build a new stadium and say, well, why not us too?
Exactly.
In fact, they might say, man, I mean, people in this town, in this area, love us more than they love the Falcons. We're more popular than they are.
Yeah, so why can't we have a stadium?
We should get a stadium before them. And they might have even said, I bet you, what you're saying right now, it may have influenced not only their move to build a new stadium, but you could argue that maybe it had some impact on their decision to build it in Cobb County. So you get a dip say, hey, we want a new stadium too. But these Fulton County taxpayers are already footing the bill for a new Falcon Stadium. How can we get it? Well, why don't we just move over a few miles and we'll get these taxpayers in Cobb County to build us a new stadium.
And plus, I added the fact on
So now we can get a new stadium and we're not putting another one on the Fulton County taxpayers. And we're still right here by Fulton County.
And
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, plus you add in that they've been asking, for a couple years, like, hey, we got to do something.
Yeah.
And nothing's happened. So the fact that, the Falcons get their stadium deal and then the Braves are still sitting there like, where's our stadium at? So. All right, let's see. Pretty much covers traffic, attendance. Do you know anything about the new public transportation
what's
system?
What is it? MARTA. I know that. See, I've only lived here for 2 years, but I'm aware that Cobb County residents didn't want it.
Yeah.
And they sort of feel like this Braves stadium is going to push that on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know much about that, to be honest. That could be true.
They better.
I don't necessarily know why you wouldn't want it.
Exactly.
But they must have reasons that I don't really know about.
Let's see. Do you know anything about the voting? How they were basically, they never vote. Like the residents would usually vote on something that's important, like this, but they didn't even have a voting. They just the officials did the voting, and
they never get a vote, man, because
they just kind of did it.
The taxpayers probably wouldn't go for it,
So Yeah.
They're not going to put it to a vote.
It felt like it
It's-
just
it's-
happened overnight almost.
It's a lot of that is politics too. I say, man,
Yeah.
that you don't want to be the mayor. I mean, this guy, Seam Reed, you don't want to be the mayor of Atlanta when the Braves leave town. That's bad for you, man. I mean, that's one of the things that voters pay attention to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can get over on voters, Voters don't necessarily pay attention. Most voters don't pay attention to what's going on in the school district and, what are you doing this day. But when the Braves leave town, they all notice that,
So the people who've never voted before say, hey, he's the guy who got the Braves out.
I said the same thing about the snowpocalypse thing. I mean, you're the governor, you're the mayor. They said, we're not going to do anything, and then something terrible happens. That's the worst decision you could have made, man. It's better to do something and then have nothing happen.
Yeah.
And then people are going to be like, for a couple of weeks, the people might be like, oh, man, they canceled all this work. But nobody's still be talking about it 5 years from now. 5 years from now, they're still going to be talking about what they did that day that caused traffic to be so bad. I mean, that's something you can't get over that, and you can't get over the Braves leaving. People will forget about the Falcons and this new stadium, but they won't forget about the Braves leaving town.
Nope.
And especially if they'd have left to another state, if they'd have become the San Antonio Braves.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that taxpayers won't forget.
Pay attention to that.
Voters won't forget. What about increase the value of homes?
Yeah. Do you think it will at all? I think we talked about this a little bit last year and how maybe on one of those things where you can't really put a price on it, like someone may think it's important. But
Well, I think, it depends, man. You can think of it. Will it increase the value of my house, which is probably 20 minutes away from that? No, I doubt it has any impact on the value of my house. A house right next to the stadium, if that area comes up and it's nice and it's not crime riddled and it's close, yeah, that'd be good for the residents, man. It probably will increase the value of their housing. But if it becomes just another Turner Field, which apparently is a really bad neighborhood, that's probably a bad thing for the value of housing. So who knows how it's going to play out,
yeah, so it could go either way.
My expectation is that it would, that it won't have this huge impact. That they're going to tell you it's going to have a huge positive impact. The people that hate it are going to tell you it's going to have a huge negative impact.
Yeah.
My expectation is there won't be much, but if there is anything, I might tend towards a negative one. But not some doomsday scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much the only one left on here is many newer stadiums. Let's see, they've not lived up to their promises. Basically, saying, we won't increase the debt or we won't increase the taxes or whatever like that. And then I think I kind of already asked that. I'll already go up. I think we pretty much covered everything that could be on a broad term of that. I've read so many different articles and they're all just like, it's like the same stats just on 20, 30, 40 different things. Everybody's saying the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Just like, if you look at it deep, kind of like what you're saying, if you look at it deeper, the opportunity cost and all that, and how.
That's not the thing, man. When you think about people, nobody ever says do it. No economist ever says do it. None that have ever looked at that issue conclude something different than what I just told you.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything about the closed shop here? I appreciate
Oh, no
you doing
problem.
this.